Please leave a comment where you are watching from. It all started with a Craigslist ad. Nothing flashy, just a blurry photo of a flat-screen TV sitting on a dingy kitchen counter and a one-line description. Great condition. Needs a new home. The price was a steal. $50. I wasn't looking for anything fancy. I had just moved into a small apartment downtown, and after spending most of my money on first and last month's rent, I didn't have much left to splurge. I just needed something to play games on and stream the occasional movie. I wasn't looking for a cursed object. I wasn't expecting to stumble into some horror cliché. I just wanted a decent TV. The guy selling it, he went by Craig, ironically, texted back within an hour. He told me he was moving out of state and needed to offload a few things quickly. He sounded normal. Polite. There was no weird energy, no creepy undertones. Just straight business. The only condition was that I had to pick it up myself. His place was about 40 minutes away, but for that price, I was willing to make the drive. It was already getting dark when I arrived. Craig lived in a squat, outdated apartment complex in the kind of neighborhood that felt like time had left it behind. Streetlights flickered. Windows were dark. I didn't see a single person outside. But Craig was already out front waiting, holding the TV under one arm like it was nothing. That should have been the first red flag. It looked too big to carry that easily, but he held it like it weighed next to nothing. He didn't offer much conversation. Just nodded, took the cash, and handed it off. He didn't even look me in the eye. As soon as I had the TV in hand, he turned back toward the building and disappeared without another word. Back home, I set it up on the living room floor. It was an older model, not a smart TV, no internet connection, but it had all the ports I needed for my console. I plugged it in, and it powered up without a hitch. The screen flickered once, then glowed to life with the standard no-input screen. It seemed fine. Great, even. Then I noticed the DVD tray. It was built into the side. I hadn't even realized it had one. Most TVs these days don't. It was subtle, just a slim horizontal slit with a little eject button beneath it. Out of curiosity, I hit the button. The screen flashed to static, glitched for a second, and then a disc popped out, slowly like a tongue slipping between teeth. It wasn't labeled. Just a jet-black surface that reflected the light strangely. I turned it over in my hands. No title. No logos. No fingerprints. It was clean. Too clean. I probably should have tossed it then and there. Most people would have. But something about it intrigued me. Like I'd found a secret. A mystery. It pulled at my curiosity like a magnet. I slid it back into the tray. The screen went black. No menu. No loading symbol. Just a dead screen and silence. Then gradually, a soft static began to rise like white noise from a distant storm. It built slowly until a faint image began to take form on the screen. At first, it looked like nothing, just a collection of abstract shapes. Symbols. Spirals, jagged lines, overlapping patterns that seemed vaguely familiar but impossible to place. They were black, painted across a blank white background. They didn't move, but they pulsed somehow, like they were breathing in sync with the static. That's when the sound changed. The white noise gave way to a low, vibrating hum. It was barely audible, more of a feeling than a sound, like standing near heavy machinery or beneath power lines. I reached for the remote to turn it off. Nothing happened. The volume button didn't work. Neither did power. The TV didn't respond to anything. The symbols on the screen began to twist, folding into each other like they were alive. The hum deepened, then sharpened into a shrill, almost metallic screech. It started low in my ears and climbed until it burrowed into my skull, vibrating behind my eyes. And then, from the center of the screen, a shape began to emerge. At first it was just a blur. But slowly, terribly, it became a face. Not a normal face. It was stretched and distorted, like wax melting under heat. The eyes were too large, bulging from the sockets, and completely white. The mouth was open in a silent scream, lips pulled back to reveal cracked, blackened teeth. The skin rippled like it was underwater. It was watching me. I couldn't move. My body locked in place, rooted to the spot like prey staring down a predator. The face grew closer. The symbols behind it began to rotate, fast and chaotic, flashing strange patterns that made my vision blur. My ears filled with a ringing like nails on a chalkboard. I reached for the TV cord and yanked it from the outlet. The screen went black. The silence that followed was unbearable. It rang louder than the screech that had come before. My ears kept ringing even after the sound was gone. My heart was slamming in my chest, cold sweat covering my skin. I stumbled back onto the couch and just sat there shaking. I don't know how long I sat in the dark. Maybe an hour. Maybe 2. Eventually, I gathered enough strength to stand. The disc tray was still half open. The black disc gleamed dully in the faint light. I pulled it out and stared at it. And even though I told myself it was just a DVD, just some weird experimental art film or prank, I couldn't bring myself to watch it again. I threw it in the trash. But it didn't feel like enough. I took it outside, dropped it into the metal trash can in the alley behind my building, and lit it on fire with a can of lighter fluid. The flames caught instantly. But instead of smelling like burnt plastic, the air filled with the stench of something else. Rotten meat. Burning hair. Char. I gagged and stumbled back, watching as the disc curled and cracked, blackened and then disappeared into ash. I didn't sleep that night. I left the TV unplugged and shoved it into the closet. Even then, I couldn't shake the feeling that it was still watching me. The next day, I listed it back on Craigslist. $20. Didn't care if I took a loss, I just wanted it gone. Some teenager picked it up later that afternoon. I told him it worked fine. He didn't ask any questions. After that, things didn't go back to normal. Not really. I started seeing things. At first, it was quick flashes, those same symbols, blinking onto my phone screen for half a second before disappearing. Once, I swear I saw the face reflected in the microwave door. Another time, in the bus window as I rode to work. I stopped using mirrors at night. The humming came back too. Faint at first. Just under the surface of sound. Like tinnitus. But it grew louder as the days passed, and sometimes, in moments of total silence, I'd hear a whisper beneath it. A whisper speaking in a language I didn't understand. I tried to tell myself it was stress. Lack of sleep. I went to a doctor. They ran tests. Told me I was fine. Prescribed anxiety meds I never filled. Then I started dreaming. I'd wake up standing in front of the TV. Not the new one I bought, but the old one. The one I got rid of. It would be sitting in the middle of the room, plugged in, glowing. The black disc would be inside. The symbols would be playing, and I'd just stand there, staring, unable to move. In the dream, the face never screamed. It smiled. The worst part is, I started expecting it. Part of me looked forward to the dreams. Like I was being conditioned. I stopped going out. Stopped talking to friends. My boss fired me after I didn't show up for work 3 days in a row. I didn't care. The real breaking point came a week later. I woke up at 3:33 a.m., not unusual anymore. The dreams always ended at 3:33. But this time, I was already sitting up in bed, breathing heavily. My throat felt raw, like I'd been screaming. The bedroom was freezing. And my TV, the new one, was on. I hadn't plugged it in. But there it was, humming quietly, screen glowing. Static dancing across the screen. And from the center, slowly, the symbols began to form. I didn't move. Couldn't. My arms were limp at my sides, legs heavy as stone. The static crawled across the walls, across the floor, and the face started to emerge once again. Closer this time. More detailed. Its mouth moved. No sound. Just lips forming words. I knew what it was saying. I see you. The screen went black. My body unlocked. I scrambled to the TV, pulled every cord, yanked it away from the wall. It fell with a crash, the screen spiderwebbing. Still, I didn't stop. I dragged it out onto the balcony and shoved it over the edge. It hit the alley with a metallic scream, shattering into pieces. That was a month ago. Since then, I've moved twice. I don't keep a TV anymore. No electronics I don't absolutely need. No Craigslist. No used items. But sometimes I still hear it, the humming. I'll be walking through a grocery store or trying to sleep, and there it is. Faint. Familiar. And I know it's not over. Because last night, when I came home, there was a package sitting outside my door. No return address. No postage. Just a black envelope. Inside? A disc. Jet black. No label. No markings. Just a note. Play me. I didn't touch it. I left it on the counter. But I haven't been able to stop looking at it. And now, as I sit here typing this, I can hear the humming again, louder this time. Closer. I think it's in the walls. And I think I'm going to play it. I'd been trying to sell my Honda CBR 600RR for a while. It was a good bike. Sleek, fast, reliable, almost pristine considering how long I'd owned it. I'd taken care of it like it was my child, but the reality was, I wasn't riding much anymore. City traffic, tight schedules, and the creeping dread of growing older had slowly replaced my thrill for the open road. So, I did what anyone does when they want to offload something quick. I listed it on Craigslist. The ad was simple. 2009 Honda CBR 600RR, excellent condition, low miles, $5,500 OBO. Within a few days, I got the usual flood of tire kickers, lowballers, and wannabe racers. Most wanted to test ride without a license or offered $2,000 cash right now. I ignored them all. Then came a message that stood out. Hey, still available? I used to ride the exact same model. Would love to check it out. I can meet today. Cash ready. It was straightforward. No hageling. No beese. We messaged back and forth for a bit. His name was Evan. Said he used to race when he was younger, had taken a few years off riding after a bad wreck, but was ready to get back in the saddle. He spoke the language of riders, threw around terms only a real biker would know. Talked about gear ratios, tire pressure, throttle sensitivity. He knew what he was talking about, so I agreed to meet him. We set it for 4 p.m. the next day. I gave him my address. He replied, I'll bring my helmet. Hope it's as fast as I remember. The day came. I polished the bike up, double-checked everything, the brakes, tire pressure, fluids. I even printed out the title and tucked it into an envelope just in case. At 3:59 p.m. on the dot, a guy pulled up in an old black sedan. He stepped out with a matte black helmet under his arm and a calm, confident stride. Late 20s, maybe 30, wearing a faded leather jacket and dark jeans. Something about him felt familiar, like I'd seen him before, maybe at a track day or on some old riding forum. Evan? I asked. He nodded, smiling. You weren't kidding. This thing looks brand new. We chatted a bit. He asked to take it around the block, a standard test ride. Normally I'm cautious with that, but he handed over his driver's license and $5,500 in cash, folded neatly inside a bank envelope. Take your time, I said. He pulled on his helmet, threw his leg over the bike, and revved it once. It purred like it always did. A perfect machine. I stood on the porch and watched him roll down the street, the red tail light shrinking into the distance. 10 minutes passed. Then 20. By the 30-minute mark, I started getting nervous. The test ride loop was simple, just a few streets and a big square. 15 minutes tops. At 45 minutes, I was pacing. My heart was thumping, hands clammy. I kept telling myself maybe he stopped to test something, maybe he was just stretching it out. But deep down, I knew something was wrong. I pulled out the driver's license he gave me and looked at it properly for the first time. The name read, Evan Richard Carruthers. The photo was faded, almost smudged. The kind of where you see on IDs kept too long in a wallet. But something felt off. The font. The colors. It was like a bad photocopy of a real ID. I squinted at the address listed and typed it into my phone. No results found. No street. No zip. Just a line of numbers that didn't exist. That's when the dread really set in. I called the number he had used to message me. Straight to voicemail. I texted him. No reply. By sunset, I was walking the streets with my keys in hand, checking every alley and garage, thinking maybe he'd dumped the bike or crashed. Nothing. The cash was still in my hand, but the weight of it didn't feel right anymore. It felt heavy. Wrong. Eventually I called a buddy of mine, Derek, a local cop. Stay put, he said after I explained. I'll swing by. He showed up an hour later with another officer in tow. I handed him the ID and explained everything, from the messages to the weird delay. He scanned the license under a small light clipped to his vest. This isn't real, he said after a few seconds. It's a fake. Good one. But fake. I felt my stomach knot. So he stole the bike? I asked, voice dry. Maybe, Derek said. Or maybe something else is going on. What kind of bike was it? I told him again. CBR 600RR. 2009. He was quiet for a beat, then walked to his patrol car. When he came back, he had a strange look on his face. Okay, he said. Here's the thing. We've seen this before. Not often. Maybe twice in the last decade. He pulled out his phone and showed me an old news clipping. It was grainy, scanned from a newspaper archive. Local rider dies in high-speed crash, 2009. The article was about a man named Evan Carruthers. Died during a late-night ride on a winding road just outside the city. Lost control on a turn. The bike, a red 2009 Honda CBR 600RR, exploded on impact. The photo showed the wreckage, a mangled frame, and a scorched patch of asphalt. Derek scrolled further. There was a picture of Evan. Same guy. Same jacket. Same face. Same helmet. I stared at the screen, then at the fake ID in my hand. No, I whispered. Derek's face was unreadable. We've had 2 other reports like this. Both people selling bikes. Both test rides. The buyer vanishes. Leaves behind cash. Fake license. And then what? I asked. He hesitated. One guy reported that the bike came back. Middle of the night. Just parked in his garage like it never left. No footprints. No sound. Just the bike. Engine warm. I didn't say anything. What do you say to that? That night, I barely slept. I kept the money in a drawer, buried under receipts, as if the weight of it might bring Evan back. At 3:11 a.m., I heard something. A deep, low-purring noise. It was unmistakable. I sat up, heart racing, and walked to the window. My garage light was on. I hadn't turned it on. Barefoot, shaking, I crept down the stairs and opened the side door to the garage. The bike was sitting there, right where I had parked it the day before. Keys still in the ignition. Dust on the tires. The engine was warm. There were no signs of entry. The door had been locked from the inside. I walked around it slowly, checking every inch. On the tank, someone had traced a line through the dust with a gloved finger. 3 words, written clearly in the grime. Good as new. I backed out, shut the door, locked everything. The next morning, I sold the bike to a dealership. Took less than it was worth. I just wanted it gone. I found the Craigslist ad at 2:43 a.m., eyes bleary, caffeine pulsing through my veins, and my roommate's search on life support. My last lease had ended in flames, almost literally after a grease fire, and I was couch hopping between friends, desperate to find a room I could afford. The listing read, room available, $400 per month. Utilities included. Quiet space. Looking for someone respectful, discreet, and tidy. Must enjoy solitude. There were 5 attached photos of a modest, eerily clean apartment in a quiet neighborhood near campus. Hardwood floors. Pristine furniture. Minimal clutter. It looked staged like an IKEA showroom. But $400 a month? I sent a message immediately, not expecting much. I got a reply within minutes. Hi, my name is Daniel. You can come by tomorrow if you're interested. 3 p.m. Let me know. It was almost too easy. But I didn't have the luxury of skepticism anymore. I needed a place fast. I responded with a quick confirmation and collapsed onto the lumpy couch I was currently calling home. The next afternoon, I stood outside the apartment door. It looked even cleaner in person. A matte black number 12 was fixed to the door. No knocker, no doorbell. Just stillness. I knocked. The door opened within seconds, and Daniel stood there smiling. He looked just like his profile picture, mid-30s, thin, a little pale, hair neatly parted, dressed like he'd stepped out of a church bulletin. His smile was polite but hollow. He didn't blink enough. Hi, he said. Right on time. I like that. He stepped aside to let me in, and I immediately felt like I was stepping into a museum. The apartment was immaculate. Not just clean, but unnaturally clean. The floors gleamed. The books on the shelves were perfectly aligned by height. The carpet had vacuum lines so precise they looked machine-drawn. A faint smell of flowers and something vaguely antiseptic lingered in the air. I keep things pretty neat, Daniel said, as if reading my thoughts. I can see that. We walked through the space. Kitchen, bathroom, living room with a single couch and an old TV that didn't look used. His bedroom door was shut. The guest room, my room, if I moved in, was small but decent. A bed, a dresser, a desk, and an old radiator under the window. I don't like loud people, Daniel said suddenly, voice low. Or company. So no guests. Ever. Sure, I said, a little taken aback. I'm pretty quiet. I also work from home, so I'm around a lot. I keep to myself. I expect the same. The way he said it, it wasn't a suggestion. It was a rule. But the price was right. And honestly, I'd lived with worse. I'll take it, I said. He smiled wider this time. I knew you would. The first week was fine. Daniel mostly stayed in his room, and I hardly saw him. When we crossed paths, he was always polite, always smiling, always watching. But I noticed things, like how he never left the apartment. Ever. His shoes never moved from the mat by the door. He never carried groceries in. No takeout containers, no food deliveries, no mail. Nothing changed in the apartment, but he was always there. And then there were the walls. It started as a sound. Scratching. Late at night. Soft, subtle, like someone gently dragging fingernails across wood. At first, I thought it was mice. Then I noticed it only happened when I was in bed. Always from the wall between my room and his. Scratch. Scratch. Pause. Scratch, scratch, scratch. I brought it up once. Hey, do you ever hear? I don't hear anything, he said, cutting me off. His eyes didn't leave the mug in his hand. Okay. Must be the pipes. But we both knew it wasn't the pipes. Week 2. That's when I noticed he talked to himself. Not like muttering or mumbling, but full-on conversations. I'd walk past the kitchen and hear his voice rising and falling, like he was arguing with someone. But there was never anyone there. One night, I heard him yell. No, that's not what I said. He doesn't know. I froze in the hallway. My skin prickled. The next morning, he greeted me with a smile. As if nothing happened. Week 3. That's when I started seeing marks. At first, I thought they were shadows. Smudges. But no. There were scratches on the walls. Long, thin lines like something had been clawing at the paint. They started in the hallway. Then the bathroom. Then my room. Always in corners. Always low to the ground. One night, I couldn't sleep. I kept hearing the scratching again, this time from inside the wall. I pressed my ear against it, and I swear to God, I heard whispers. Not Daniel's voice. Children. Laughing. And crying. I confronted him the next morning. Daniel, have you been messing with the walls? He blinked slowly. Why would I do that? There are scratches. They weren't there before. And I keep hearing things. His smile widened, too wide. You shouldn't press your ear to the walls. What? He took a sip of his coffee. They don't like that. That night, I tried to sleep with headphones in. At around 3:20 a.m., my music stopped suddenly. The silence was deafening. Then I felt it. Breathing. Behind me. I turned over. Nothing there. But the closet door, shut when I went to bed, was open. Just a crack. I got up. Closed it. Heard a soft giggle behind me. Spun around. Empty room. I didn't sleep. Week 4. I'd had enough. I packed my things while Daniel was asleep, or pretending to be. When I reached the door, he was standing in the hallway, blocking the exit. Going somewhere? Yeah, I said, my voice shaking. I've got a friend who needs help. Emergency. He smiled. You can't leave yet. My throat went dry. Why not? Because the walls remember you now. What the hell does that mean, Daniel? He didn't answer. Instead, he tilted his head, listening. And then I heard it too. Dozens of voices. Coming from behind the walls. Whispers. Cries. Laughter. Screams. And scratching. Everywhere. All at once. I pushed past him and yanked the front door open. But it wasn't my hallway on the other side. It was pitch black. And cold. The door slammed shut behind me. I don't know how long I wandered in that darkness. The walls whispered constantly. Names. Please. Laughter. I saw glimpses of things, hands reaching from cracks, eyes peering through holes, mouths pressed against invisible barriers. Time stopped meaning anything. Eventually, I woke up in the guest room. On the bed. Like nothing had happened. Daniel was sitting on the chair across the room. Smiling. I told you, he said. You can't leave. I don't know how long I've been here. The walls don't let me sleep anymore. They move when I'm not looking. I see shapes in the corners of my eyes. Daniel still smiles. Still talks to them. Sometimes I hear them whispering my name. Sometimes I whisper back. I don't know if I ever really existed outside this place. Maybe the Craigslist ad found me. Maybe the apartment was always here. Maybe Daniel isn't even Daniel. He says there were others before me. They're still here. I can hear them in the walls. There are moments in your life when something just doesn't sit right. You get a gut feeling. A twinge of hesitation. Most of the time, it's nothing. You brush it off and move on. But sometimes, rarely, ignoring it becomes the biggest mistake you'll ever make. That's how I ended up with a phone I should have never touched. It started like this. My phone had been dying for months. Dropped calls. Freezing apps. Battery life that lasted about as long as my patience. I didn't have the money to buy a new one, so I turned to Craigslist. Used Android. Good condition. $100. Must pick up. No photos. Just that. I replied, figuring it was probably scratched to hell or stolen. The guy got back to me almost instantly. Said his name was Caleb. Told me to meet him at a small duplex on the edge of town. Nothing sketchy about that, right? I should have bailed. But I didn't. I needed a phone. When I showed up, Caleb was already waiting outside. Late 20s. Pale. Nervous eyes that darted over my shoulder like he was expecting someone to be following me. He didn't say much. Just held the phone out to me like he couldn't wait to be rid of it. I looked it over. Older model, but decent condition. No cracks. A bit of wear and tear on the case. It works? I asked. He nodded, eyes wide. Yeah. Just don't reset it. It'll lock you out. That felt like a red flag. You mean like Google Lock? Something like that. Before I could ask more, he pushed the phone into my hand, took the cash, and practically ran back inside. Didn't even say goodbye. I should have known something was wrong. The phone worked fine at first. I swapped my SIM card in, charged it up, and set it next to my bed while I let it finish updating. It ran a little hot, but that's normal for older phones. The weird part was that it already had some contacts saved on it. Most were generic. Mom, work, garage. But one stood out. Unknown_56. No phone number attached. Just that name. I tried deleting it. The phone froze. Then crashed. When it rebooted, the contact was still there. Okay, weird, but not deal-breaking. I moved on. Downloaded my usual apps. Logged into my email. Put on music. That's when the text started. The first one came in at 1:13 a.m. Unknown_56. Hello. Do you remember me? I stared at the screen for a second. Was this some joke? A scam? I typed back. Wrong number. A reply came immediately. You have something of mine. I didn't answer. The next message came 30 seconds later. Don't ignore me. I blocked the number. But there was no number to block. The phone wouldn't let me do it. Instead, the messages kept coming. Each one weirder than the last. I'm still here. You can't lock me out. Do you see it yet? Look behind you. I turned around. Nothing. But I swear the temperature in the room dropped. Over the next few days, things escalated. I started hearing static. Not from the phone. From everywhere. My headphones buzzed. The TV flickered. Even my microwave made this low electrical whine whenever I walked past it with the phone in my pocket. At night, the phone would turn itself on. The screen would light up on its own, glowing faintly in the dark. Always to the same screen. A call in progress. Always to unknown_56. Duration midnight. No sound. Just silence. Or at least, it used to be silence. The first time I heard the voice, I was half asleep. The phone buzzed next to me. I picked it up, expecting another spam text. Instead, I heard someone breathing. Then whispering. A woman's voice. Soft. Distant. Repeating the same phrase over and over. Let me in. I dropped the phone. It clattered to the floor, screen still lit up. I turned it off. Hard shutdown. But when I opened my eyes the next morning, the phone was back on, sitting on my pillow, screen facing me. The call timer read. 6 hours, 13 minutes. I hadn't called anyone. I tried wiping the phone. Factory reset. Full wipe. Nuked it. When it rebooted, the contact was still there. The messages started again. This time they were more direct. I see you. You lied. Why won't you answer? I smashed the phone against the wall. It didn't break. Not even a scratch. The screen just lit up again. You can't hurt me. I tried taking it to a shop. The tech gave me a weird look the second he powered it on. Where did you get this? He asked. Craigslist. He handed it back without touching it again. I'm not messing with that. What do you mean? He hesitated, then leaned in closer. Phones pick up things. Energy. Residual signals. Most of it's just junk. Code. Echoes. But this. He looked down at the device like it was radioactive. This feels like it's listening. The next night, things hit a new low. I woke up at 3:15 a.m. My bedroom lights were flickering. The radio turned on by itself. Static again. And the phone. It was floating. I'm not kidding. Hovering 6 inches above my dresser, spinning slowly in midair. Then it dropped. Hard. Shattered the lamp next to it. The screen cracked, but the display was still perfect. And across it, in blood-red text. Let me in. I ran. Didn't even grab my wallet. I drove to the nearest 24-hour diner and stayed there until sunrise, phone wrapped in aluminum foil and shoved in the trunk like a cursed artifact. When I finally got home, the apartment felt wrong, like the air had been stirred. The phone was gone from the trunk. It was back on my bed, waiting. That night, I received a video message. It was short. Maybe 5 seconds. It showed me sleeping. Shot from just above my headboard. I don't have a camera there. I don't have any cameras at all. The phone buzzed once more. You'll never be alone again. I believed it. I returned to Caleb's place. The house was empty. Boards over the windows. Overdrone lon. I asked a neighbor about him. They looked confused. No one's lived there in years. That place has been abandoned since. God, at least 2018. That didn't make sense. I had just met him. I bought a phone from a guy there, I said. The neighbor squinted. That wouldn't have been Caleb then. Why not? Caleb's dead. Shot himself in the head. Right in that house. Found his body next to a cell phone. No one ever figured out why. I left. Didn't even say thank you. I got back in my car, heart pounding. The phone was waiting for me in the cup holder. Buzzing. I didn't touch it. Not for a while. Now, I keep it turned off. Wrapped in tin foil, inside a metal box under my bed. And still I hear it sometimes. Buzzing faintly. Whispering my name. Laughing. Once, I woke up to find it sitting on my chest. Cold as ice. Sometimes I think about selling it. Putting it back on Craigslist. Letting someone else take it. But I can't. Because I don't think it belongs to me anymore. I think I belong to it. And the worst part, last night, when I checked my own contact list, I saw something new. Just one entry. Unknown_57. I didn't add it. And whoever, or whatever, it is, they're typing. It's wild how desperate you get when you're jobless. No paycheck, no rent money, and no safety net. You start compromising. Lowering standards. Saying yes when every part of you is screaming to say no. That's exactly how I ended up walking into a building I now believe doesn't exist. It started with a Craigslist listing, of course. Where else? Personal assistant needed. Immediate hire. Discretion required. No company name. No job description beyond vague words like flexible, hands-on, and confidential. But the pay? $1,200 a week. For an assistant job. Too good to be true, but my bank account was eating itself, and my pride had already been sold to the lowest bidder. I sent my resume that night. Less than an hour later, I got an email back. Subject, your interview. Hi name. We've reviewed your resume and would love to meet you in person. Please arrive at Redacted Business Plaza, room 401 at 3 p.m. Ask for Jason. Come alone. Thanks. Hiring department asterisk. The come alone part should have stopped me. It didn't. I arrived 15 minutes early. The building was off. A 4-story office structure on the edge of town, squatting behind a row of abandoned warehouses. The lot was half paved, littered with broken glass. No signage. No lights. Just the faded imprint of a company name that had long been scraped off the glass entrance. Inside, the air was dead. No humming computers. No distant phones. No receptionist. Just stale carpet and flickering ceiling lights. I checked the email again. Room 401. I took the elevator. It groaned the entire way. When the doors opened to the 4th floor, a hallway stretched out like it had no end. Every office door was shut. No labels. No windows. I felt like I was trespassing in a dream. The only light was coming from the door at the far end. 401. I knocked. A man's voice answered immediately. Come in. Inside was a conference room, long table, uncomfortable chairs, cheap blinds filtering sunlight in strips across the walls. Jason stood by the window. Mid-40s, disheveled, wearing a dark suit 2 sizes too large. His tie hung loose, his eyes were ringed with exhaustion. Thanks for coming, he said, gesturing for me to sit. We appreciate punctuality. I sat. The door clicked shut behind me. That's when I realized something was wrong. There were no papers on the table. No laptop. No notepad. Nothing but dust. Jason sat across from me. You've been looking for a job a long time, he said. I hadn't told him that. He kept going. You've applied for 87 positions in the last 3 months. 16 rejections. No interviews. Until now. How do you? He smiled. We make it our business to know. I tried to keep calm. What is this job exactly? His eyes didn't blink. It's a commitment. We value loyalty. We value presence. And most of all, we value silence. I tried to stand. You haven't answered my question. He stood too. You said you'd come alone. We require that for screening. Then I saw it. On the wall behind him, what I'd thought was a smudge was actually a hole. Circular. Deep. just about the size of a human head. I felt dizzy. Jason kept talking. The ones who pass stay. The ones who don't, he gestured vaguely toward the wall. I backed toward the door. But it wasn't there. I spun around. No knob. Just a smooth metal slab where the door had been. I want to leave, I said. Jason smiled again, but it didn't reach his eyes. You're already here. I don't remember how long I was in that room. Time unraveled. Jason was always there. Watching. Asking questions that made no sense. Do you dream in red or black? What was your mother's maiden name before she was born? Have you ever watched yourself sleep? I stopped answering. That's when the walls started changing. The texture shifted. Bubbled. Peeled like old skin. One day I woke up to find a second door on the far wall. Just a crack of light behind it. I ran to it, but it was a mirror. Not just a reflection. Another me. She looked terrified. I started screaming. Eventually, I woke up in my car. No memory of how I got there. It was 3:03 p.m., the same day. Same clothes. Same phone. No missed calls, no emails. I was parked outside a gas station halfway across town. I rushed home. Ripped through my browser history. Craigslist. Job site. Email. Nothing. The job listing was gone. So was the reply. I never found the building again. But here's the worst part. That wasn't the end. That mirror version of me, the one I saw in room 401. I started seeing her in real mirrors. First in my bathroom. Then in store windows. Always just a second too late. She smiles now. Like she's waiting. And every day since then, I get a call at 3:03 p.m. The screen says, Jason, unknown number. I've never picked up. I don't know what happens if I do. But I can feel something pressing against the wall behind me every time the phone rings. Scraping. Whispering. Trying to get back in. I hadn't thought about Matthew Talden in years. Not really. There were flashes, sure, memories that drifted into my mind like leaves blown in through an open window. His laugh, nasal and loud. His awful attempts at facial hair. The way he always wore that same jacket. Black denim, white stitching along the shoulders, and patches sewn haphazardly down the sleeves. It had this distinct, musty smell, like dirt and leather and something faintly sweet, almost rotten. We were inseparable once, in that intense way only high school friendships can be. Until one day we just weren't. No fights. No falling out. We just drifted. I went to college. He stayed behind. I started hearing things, he'd gotten weird, gone off the grid, talked to himself. But I didn't reach out. I had my own life, my own spiral. I figured if he wanted me to know anything, he'd reach out. He never did. That's why when I saw his name in a Craigslist ad, reward, information on missing person, Matthew T. It felt like the air had been knocked out of my lungs. There was no photo. No dramatic write-up. Just that one sentence. And somehow I knew T was Talden. It had to be. The ad wasn't flashy or desperate, but it vibrated with quiet urgency, like someone whispering at the end of a long hallway. I stared at it for a long time. Then I clicked reply. The first email came back fast. Too fast. From unseen.thread@protonmail.com. Subject, missing person inquiry. Body, thank you for responding. Did you know Matthew personally? If so, please answer the following. When did you last see or speak to him? Was he acting strange? Did he ever mention the jacket? Your honesty is important. This is not a joke. There was no signature. No name. Just that plain message. I hovered my fingers over the keyboard, suddenly unsure of what I was doing. It felt dumb, dangerous even, but I answered. Yeah, we were close friends in high school. Haven't spoken in years. I don't remember him being strange. He did always wear this jacket, though. Black with white stitching. Looked like it had been through hell. What's this about? The reply came 5 minutes later. He called it the jacket. He believed it was alive. You should come. 243 Kessler Road. Don't bring anyone. Midnight is best. I stared at the message, blinking. Whoever this was, they weren't asking. They were inviting. Demanding almost. And somehow, I already knew I was going. Kessler Road was 20 minutes from where I lived, but it felt further. It curled through the edge of town like a scar, full of half-buried driveways and burnt-out homes that looked abandoned even when lights flickered inside. 243 was no different. It wasn't a house, it was a storefront. An old dry cleaner, long since gutted. The letters from the sign above had fallen off, leaving only the faint ghost imprint of Keel and Press. I parked across the street and waited in the dark. 12:01 a.m. No lights. No sound. I got out anyway. The front door wasn't locked. Inside, it smelled like rust and detergent. A cracked linoleum floor stretched to the back where a plastic curtain hung crooked from a bent rod. Shelves lined the walls, holding decaying boxes and moth-eaten garments wrapped in plastic. I moved slowly, my breath echoing against the tile. And then I saw it. The jacket. Black denim. White stitching. Patches of symbols, zigzags and spirals, crudely sewn into the sleeves. Hanging alone, without plastic, without a hanger, on a hook in the far corner. My stomach turned. And then someone spoke. You remember it. I spun around. A man stood in the shadow by the curtain. Pale, thin, younger than I expected, but with a face that looked worn. Like he hadn't slept in days. Or years. Who are you? I asked, trying to keep my voice even. He didn't answer. Instead, he walked past me and reached up, gently removing the jacket from the hook. This is what's left, he murmured. It sheds, every time someone touches it. Like skin. I took a step back. He turned toward me, holding the jacket like it was made of glass. Do you want to know what happened to Matthew? He asked. I swallowed. Yes. Then you need to wear it. I should have left right then. Should have turned and walked out, blocked the email, deleted the memory. Instead, I reached for the jacket. It was heavy. Not like denim, more like wet wool. The moment I touched it, I felt something give, like a breath pressed against my palm. I slipped it on, and the room changed. The air got thicker, colder. The shadows seemed to pull inward. I looked around, but the man was gone. The curtain at the back of the room rippled without wind. And all around me, I started to hear whispers, dozens of them, maybe hundreds. A low murmur, like voices bleeding through a wall. I couldn't understand the words, but I could feel them. They knew me. And underneath it all, louder than anything, I heard Matthew's voice. Hey, Elias, it said. I can't get out. I yanked the jacket off and dropped it on the floor. The voices stopped. The curtain fluttered again, and the man stepped back into view. He's still inside, he said quietly. That's what it does. It remembers the wearer, records them, and sometimes, if the stitching is strong enough, it keeps them. You're saying Matthew is trapped? In this thing? He nodded once. I don't believe you, I said. I don't. But I did. God help me, I did. The jacket twitched on the floor. I didn't sleep that night. I kept hearing his voice, not whispering anymore, but loud and clear. He said my name over and over again. Every time I tried to focus on something else, it would slip in at the edges. Elias. Elias. Why did you leave me? It got into my dreams. I saw him standing at the end of my hallway, soaked in something thick and black, the jacket writhing on his back like it was made of snakes. He didn't have eyes, just threads crisscrossing his face. I woke up screaming. 3 days passed. I didn't tell anyone. I checked the Craigslist ad again. It was gone. Deleted. The email bounced. The dry cleaner on Kessler? Boarded up, sealed with rusted chains. And the jacket? It was hanging in my closet. I never brought it home. I never touched it after dropping it on that floor. But there it was waiting. I burned it. I poured lighter fluid over it and tossed in a match. The flames rose high and fast, and then snuffed themselves out, like a breath under a glass. The jacket was untouched. Not a singe mark. That night, I found new stitching along the hem. I'm not done. I knew what I had to do. If the jacket kept the wearer, recorded them, trapped them, then maybe it could be reversed. Maybe I could go in and pull Matthew out. It was stupid, dangerous, insane. But it was also my fault. I put the jacket on. I woke up standing in a field of mirrors. They weren't clear, they were warped, stained, some cracked. Each one reflected a different version of myself. One was younger, thinner, with a cast on his arm. Another was pale and sunken-eyed, bleeding from the nose. Some I didn't recognize at all. I turned, and he was there. Matthew. He was wearing the jacket, or something like it, only it had grown larger, thicker, its threads pulsing like veins. His skin was gray. His eyes were sewn shut. Elias, he said. His voice didn't come from his mouth. It came from everywhere. Why didn't you come sooner? I didn't know, I said. I didn't know this was real. He smiled, teeth like pins. It's always real here. The mirrors began to hum. One by one, they turned black. He stepped closer. You can take my place, he whispered. I backed away, but my feet stuck to the floor, stitched down. The jacket wrapped tighter around me. I felt threads burrowing into my skin, anchoring me. Stop, I gasped. Please. but he only smiled wider. Then somehow something tore. A stitch broke, a seam split open, and the mirrors shattered. I woke up on my bedroom floor, naked, cold, bleeding from 1,000 tiny cuts. The jacket was gone, so was Matthew's voice. For a moment, I thought I had saved him, freed him, until I saw the message scratched into my wall. Thank you for your thread. That was 6 months ago. Since then, things have been different. Sometimes I find pieces of thread in my bed. Black, white-stitched. They move when I'm not looking. Sometimes I hear laughter, his laughter, coming from my closet. And sometimes, when I look in the mirror, I see him. Wearing my face. Wearing the jacket. It started with boredom. I'd had a long week, work stress, roommate drama, the kind of quiet exhaustion that seeps into your bones. So late one Friday night, with a drink in hand and nowhere to be, I started scrolling Craigslist. No real reason. It had become a habit. Not for furniture or jobs or anything practical. I just liked reading the weird personal ads, the strange connections people tried to make out of loneliness, lust, or straight-up madness. Then I saw one that stood out. Subject, new friend? Looking for someone to talk to. Not a hookup, not a scam. Just someone real. We can message anonymously or meet later if you want. If you're up late too, reply. No pressure. I just don't want to be alone tonight. Hey. There was nothing especially creepy about it, not at first. In fact, it felt sad, genuine, in a way most of Craigslist isn't. I was already buzzed, and I figured a chat couldn't hurt. So I replied, Hey, I'm up late too. Not much going on tonight. What's your story? I didn't expect a response. Most of these went nowhere. But 5 minutes later, I got an email back. From invisiblethread@riseup.net. Subject, new friend? I'm glad you wrote. My story's pretty boring. I just like to know people exist. That sounds weird, doesn't it? What's your name? The name was weird. Invisible Thread. Sounded like the title of an art house horror movie. But I didn't care. I was a few drinks in and, honestly, the vibe was more melancholic than threatening. I'm Kale. 26, graphic designer. And yeah, I get that. Sometimes I just want proof that someone else is out there too. Seconds passed. Then the typing bubble returned. You ever feel like someone is watching you, even when you're alone? I froze. Not because it was threatening, but because, I had felt that. That crawling sensation, especially late at night, when the apartment creaked just right and shadows felt too thick. Yeah, I felt that. The messages kept coming. Over the next hour, we messaged back and forth. They didn't give a name, but they were articulate, thoughtful. They liked obscure music, weird photography, local abandoned places. We had a surprising amount in common. They told me they were somewhere in the city, but never said where. Eventually, they asked for my number. I gave it. It wasn't like I expected them to use it. The first text came at 2:47 a.m. Do you see it? Just that. I frowned, half asleep now, and texted back. See what? There was a pause. Then a photo arrived. It was a picture of a street. Dimly lit. Familiar. Very familiar. I bolted upright, squinting at the screen. It was my street. My apartment building. Taken from the sidewalk directly across from my unit. What the hell? Are you outside? Typing bubble. Then, I like your windows. You leave them open. My skin went cold. I jumped from the couch and ran to the window, yanking the blinds shut so hard they snapped. I didn't see anyone out there, but the street light had blown last week. Shadows clung to the curb like thick fog. I called the number. Straight to voicemail. I didn't sleep that night. The next day, I tried to convince myself it was a prank. Maybe I'd posted more online than I remembered. Maybe they found me somehow. Still, I blocked the number. Reported the Craigslist thread. I even deleted the email. But a new one came that night. Subject, I know you're awake. Kale. Blocking me doesn't stop anything. You shouldn't be afraid. You're the one who answered. You opened the thread. I stayed away from Craigslist after that. Days passed. No new emails. No new messages. I started to sleep again. But one night, I noticed something strange. I keep a small notebook on my desk, old habit, something I use to sketch or jot down random ideas. I hadn't touched it in days, but now, there were words scribbled on the last page. They weren't mine. You can't unsee the thread. You pulled it. Now it's pulling you. I flipped the notebook shut. My hand was shaking. A week passed. Then came another photo. This time, it wasn't of my building. It was me. through my own window. On my couch, head tilted back, headphones on. Completely unaware. The timestamp? From 2 nights ago. I went to the police. They took a report. Said they'd look into it. But I could tell they thought I was paranoid or fabricating it. No break-in, no forced entry, no credible threat. The only suggestion they gave? Maybe stay with a friend for a few nights. I didn't. Instead, I set up cameras. Front door. Bedroom. Living room. Motion activated, all synced to my phone. For the first time in years, I locked my bedroom door at night. I didn't hear from A for 2 weeks. Then they returned. It started with the smell. Something sour. Metallic. I thought it was the fridge at first. But it followed me, lingering even after I showered, like pennies and mold. Then came the whispers. Not words. Just a presence. Low and wet, like breath through torn cloth. I'd feel it by my ear as I worked. In my sleep. While brushing my teeth. I checked the cameras. Nothing. Except once, 2:08 a.m., I woke up and checked the feed. My bedroom camera was off. Only that one. The next day a package arrived. No return address. Inside was a Polaroid. A photo of me, taken from above my bed. My body twisted, mouth open, eyes rolled back. Scrawled on the back, in marker. I wore your skin. It didn't fit. I moved out. I didn't give notice. I didn't care about the deposit. I packed 2 bags, left everything else behind. Found a sublet under a fake name. Disconnected my phone. New number. New email. I even deleted every social account I had. For a while, I thought I was safe. I even started to believe maybe it really was just a prank, and I had overreacted. Until last week. That's when the Craigslist ad appeared again. Subject, new friend? Looking for someone to talk to. Not a hookup, not a scam. Just someone real. I miss Kale. He was my favorite. I reported it again. Then I got the email. From unseen.thread@protonmail.com. Subject, you moved. New place suits you. But this one has thicker walls. Makes it harder to whisper. I'll fix that. I barely sleep now. Sometimes I find threads on my floor, coarse black, like they were tugged from inside my walls. I keep hearing my own voice in recordings, saying things I don't remember saying. And the Polaroids are back. Left in my mailbox. In my bed. One was taped to my mirror, showing me sleeping in clothes I haven't worn in months. But the worst part? A few nights ago, I checked my Craigslist account. One I hadn't used since the original message. It was open. Logged in. There was a draft post waiting to be published. Subject, new friend? I'm not a scam. I'm not a threat. I just want to talk. You like me. I'm just like you. I didn't write it. But it's written in my voice. And it's signed. Kale. I've always loved getting free stuff. Call me cheap, but there's something thrilling about scoring a perfectly functional appliance or piece of furniture from Craigslist without dropping a dime. I filled half my apartment that way, lamps, end tables, even a barely used Vitamix once. You just had to be quick, and not picky, and occasionally willing to overlook how weird people could be. So when I saw the listing, free washer/dryer set. Must pick up today. First come, first served, I jumped on it. I'd been dragging my clothes down 3 flights of stairs to the coin-op laundry room in my building for months. The idea of having my own washer and dryer in the unit? Game changer. I replied within 10 minutes. The seller wrote back almost instantly. Still available. Come by ASAP if you want it. 113 Claremont Lane. Side entrance. No name. No pleasantries. Just an address and urgency. Classic Craigslist. I threw on my jacket, called my buddy Trevor, who had a truck, and we headed out. Claremont Lane was on the edge of town. The kind of neighborhood where every third house was overgrown or boarded up. Most of the homes were built in the 60s, low, square, and ugly as sin. 113 was halfway down the block. The driveway was cracked, the grass knee-high, the curtains drawn tight. But there they were, the washer and dryer, sitting right inside the open garage. They're just out here? Trevor muttered, peering through the windshield. I shrugged. Less lifting. Let's get it done. We pulled into the driveway. The garage smelled like mildew and iron. The appliances looked old but sturdy. No obvious damage. I opened the washer lid, clean enough. Dryer? Same. But then I noticed the wall. It had handprints. Smudged, rusty brown, like someone had been crawling or dragging themselves across it. Faint, but there. Too high for a kid. Too low for an adult walking upright. uneven, like they were made in a panic. Trevor saw me staring. Probably just paint, he offered. Yeah, probably. We loaded them up. The whole time I felt watched. Not from a window, from inside the garage. I kept glancing toward the dark corner near the back door, half expecting to see someone standing there. But it stayed empty. Right as we were finishing, the side door opened. A man stepped out. He was thin. Mid-50s, maybe. Pale as hell. His eyes looked off. Not cloudy, just vacant, like they didn't know where to land. He smiled wide and wrong. You got M, he said. Good. Thanks, I replied, forcing a polite grin. They were hers, he added. I paused. Whose? He turned and walked back inside. Didn't say another word. Back at my apartment, I hooked everything up. The washer made a weird clunk when it started a cycle, but otherwise seemed fine. Dryer too. I gave Trevor a 6-pack for his trouble, and told him I owed him big. That night, I tossed in a load of laundry, and turned on the TV. 15 minutes in, I heard the clunk again. Then again. Then a thud. Like something was inside the washer slamming against the lid. I paused my show, and walked into the laundry nook. Silence. I opened the lid. The clothes were still spinning, wet and tangled. I reached in. Felt something. Something not cloth. I pulled it out. It was a strip of fabric. Black. Damp. Looked like part of a dress, old-fashioned, with a faint floral pattern. Not mine. Not anyone's I knew. I stared at it, dripping onto my floor. A moment later, I dropped it back in and slammed the lid shut. That night, I woke up to the sound of the washer turning on. I live alone. There was no laundry in it. I walked out, heart thudding, and found the lid wide open. The washer full of water. And floating inside it, a black dress. Whole this time. Not a strip. Not torn. Just slowly swirling, sleeve to hem. I unplugged both machines, and left them untouched for days. But weird things started happening anyway. Every morning, I'd wake up to the dryer door hanging open. Laundry I hadn't washed was inside. Damp. Mismatched. A child's sock. A lace glove. A white undershirt with yellowed armpits. Clothes that weren't mine. That I'd never seen. I checked the plugs, the wiring. Everything was secure. No one could be breaking in without setting off the front door chime or the hallway camera. One morning I found the dryer humming, even though it wasn't on. Not running. Just humming. I went back to the Craigslist post. Gone. I dug through my inbox for the seller's email. Also gone. Not just deleted, vanished. No trace. Trevor hadn't kept it either. Dude, I thought you said this was normal Craigslist stuff, he said. What the hell did we pick up? I decided to go back to 113 Claremont Lane. Just to see. Just to make sense of this. When I got there, the house was different. The grass had been cut. The curtains were gone. And the garage? Boarded up. Hammered shut with heavy wood planks, all freshly nailed. Like someone was trying to keep something in. I knocked at the side door. No answer. I knocked again. Eventually, the door creaked open. Same man. Same vacant stare. I need to ask you about the washer, I said. He blinked. Then nodded. She's in there, he said. My stomach dropped. Who? My wife. He tilted his head. She died in it. Slipped. Cracked her skull. Bled out. Washer kept running the whole time. Spun hits and moaning. Jesus. I told her not to fix it, he said. Told her it was wrong. But she always fixed things. And now. He looked at me with hollow eyes. She still does. Then he shut the door. That night, I dreamed of water. I was underwater, spinning, limbs flailing. The water wasn't cold or warm. It was thick, like syrup. I couldn't move. Couldn't scream. My body just spun in slow circles. And at the center of it all, she was there. A woman with sopping black hair, skin sloughing off like wet paper, eyes weeping darkness. She reached for me. I woke up choking. The air smelled like detergent and iron. I dragged both machines down to the alley behind my building. I left them there. Didn't care if someone took them, or if they sat there rusting for eternity. But the next morning, they were back, right where they'd been. Hooked up, plugged in, full of water, with the black dress floating on top. I moved out, paid to break my lease. Didn't take any furniture with me, just my clothes and laptop. The new place is better, safer, I think. But sometimes late at night, I still hear the spin cycle, coming from nowhere. And once, I woke to find a wet sock on the floor by my bed. Not mine, child-sized. You ever get that feeling? That tight feeling in your chest? Not quite fear, not quite nerves. Just a quiet little whisper in your gut that says, "Don't." I ignored that voice, and I've regretted it ever since. It was just another Tuesday night. I was broke, hungry, and about 5 days from not making rent. I'd applied to every job on Indeed, ZipRecruiter, and even a few of those sketchy street team listings that always ended in pyramid schemes. Nothing panned out. So, out of desperation, I opened Craigslist. Clicked over to the gigs section. Most were the usual nonsense. Help me move a couch for $15. Take surveys. Act in a student film. Must be comfortable with nudity. But one caught my eye. Subject: easy quick cash, no experience needed. Body: looking for a trustworthy individual. One task: pays $750 cash. Must be available tonight. No questions. Discretion is everything. Respond with a phone number. It was vague. Probably a scam. But I stared at it longer than I meant to. $750? For one task. On a night I was literally considering asking my ex if I could crash on her couch. I sent a reply. They responded within 5 minutes with a text. "Are you free now?" I hesitated, then wrote, "Yeah." "What's the job?" There was a pause. Then, "Come to 492, Black Hollow Road. Building D, side entrance. We'll explain there. Bring ID. Leave your phone in the car." Red flags? All of them. But again, broke. Desperate. Dumb. Black Hollow Road was out by the old rail yards. Half the warehouses out there had been abandoned for years. The kind of place where nobody would hear you scream. But I told myself I'd just hear them out. If it felt weird, I'd bounce. I drove there. It was almost midnight when I arrived. Building D looked like every horror movie warehouse you've ever seen. Corrugated metal siding, one flickering light over the entrance, broken window panes. No signs, no logos. Just a dead zone at the edge of civilization. I parked. Sat there for a full minute, staring at the side entrance. Then I turned off the car, left my phone in the center console like they asked, and walked to the door. It opened before I knocked. 2 men stood inside. Both mid-40s, both dressed like they'd just walked out of a thrift store's security section. Dark coats, gloves, no logos or name tags. They looked me up and down, then nodded. "You're early," one of them said. "Good." The other locked the door behind me. "Follow us." They led me through a maze of dusty halls. Everything smelled like oil and old metal. No signage. No sound. Just my footsteps and the faint hum of fluorescent lights. Finally, we entered a large open space. An old shipping bay by the look of it. And in the center of the room, a crate. 6 feet long. 4 feet high. Heavy-duty wood. Padlocked. "You're the carrier," the first man said. I blinked. "The what?" "We need you to move this crate to a drop site. 40 minutes away. You'll be followed. You won't be touched unless you open it." I laughed. "That's it? I just deliver it?" "Exactly," the second man said, finally speaking. "No stops. No detours. No questions. You make the delivery. You get paid." They handed me a key. "This unlocks the padlock once you're there." "What's inside?" The first man smiled. "You don't want to know." Every instinct screamed at me to leave. But I was already there. And $750 was more money than I'd seen in months. So I agreed. They loaded the crate into a rented U-Haul parked around back. Gave me the address for the drop, some empty field north of town. Told me I'd be met there. As I pulled away, I saw one of the men standing at the warehouse entrance, watching me. He didn't wave. The first 20 minutes of the drive were uneventful. I kept glancing at the crate in the rearview mirror. It didn't move. No shifting, no bumps. But then I heard it. A tap. Then another. Like fingernails. I turned the radio off. Silence. But then thud. Something hit the side of the crate. I pulled over. Stared at the wooden box. Another thud. Louder. Followed by a low whimper. I grabbed the key they'd given me. My hand hovered over the lock. But then I remembered the man's words. "You won't be touched unless you open it." I got back in the driver's seat. Kept going. The sounds got worse. Moaning. Sometimes scratching. Once, I swear I heard words. Something that sounded like, "Help me." I screamed. Slammed the brakes. Jumped out. Ran to the crate, yelling, "Who's in there?" Silence. Not even breathing. Just stillness. I almost opened it. Almost. But something told me that was the test. That not opening it was the point. So I didn't. I kept driving. And finally, I reached the drop site, a field behind a shuttered motel. Just one car waiting. A man in a gray coat stepped out. No expression. "You have it." I nodded. He unlocked the crate. But before he opened it, he handed me an envelope. "Payment. You did well." I took it. Didn't look inside. As I walked away, I heard the crate open. And something slither out. I didn't turn around. I got in my car and drove until sunrise. Back home, I opened the envelope. Inside was exactly $750 in crisp, unmarked bills. No note. No contact info. Just cash. I never heard from them again. Never saw the Craigslist post again. But sometimes, when I'm half asleep, I hear a tapping on my bedroom wall, like fingernails on wood. And once, I heard it whisper, "You passed." Cleaning out my storage unit wasn't supposed to be an emotional experience. I'd been renting the space for over 5 years. Half the boxes belonged to my late grandfather, half to old roommates, and the rest was just stuff I'd forgotten I owned. Childhood trophies, cracked snow globes, an entire box labeled miscellaneous. It was nostalgic, but mostly dusty and dull. Until I found the camera. It was buried beneath a crate of books I didn't remember owning. Wrapped in a tattered velvet cloth. A black, leather-bound film camera. Vintage, heavy, the kind of gear Real photographers used before everything went digital. The brand Viscera wasn't familiar. I figured it was one of those short-lived boutique manufacturers from the 60s or 70s. When I picked it up, the lens shifted. Not the zoom. The glass shifted like an eye readjusting. I brought it home. I don't know why. I wasn't into photography. I didn't even own film. But something about it felt personal, important. Maybe it had belonged to my grandfather? I couldn't remember ever seeing it at his place, but it felt old. Like it carried memories. Secrets. I posted it on Craigslist later that night. Just to see. Listing. Vintage camera, unknown brand. $100. Found in storage. Very cool, heavy, possibly collectible. No idea if it works. No film. No weird questions. The reply came within an hour. From neath@blackrivermail.com. "I'll take it. Please don't sell it to anyone else. I can meet you tomorrow. Neath." We met at a coffee shop downtown. She was younger than I expected, maybe mid-20s. Pale, black hair tied back tight, wearing a faded denim jacket covered in enamel pins shaped like insects and bones. She looked more like a tattoo apprentice than a photographer. But her eyes didn't blink much. "You found this in storage?" she asked, barely glancing at me before her hands closed around the camera. "Yeah. Family unit. Thought it might be worth something." "It is." She didn't haggle. Just handed me 5 crisp $20s and slipped the camera into her tote bag. Before she left, she said, "Be careful what you list." I didn't think about it again for a few days. Then I got a message. From neath@blackrivermail.com. "Did you take any photos with it?" I replied, "No." "Why?" No answer. That night, I had a dream. I was in my childhood home, only it wasn't quite right. The layout was twisted, elongated. Doors opened into brick walls. Light switches didn't work. I kept hearing the click of a camera shutter behind me, but no one was there. I woke up in a cold sweat. There was a flash, like from a bulb, just outside my window. But when I looked, the street was empty. 2 days later, I got another email. Subject, frames. I developed the film inside. You said it was empty. It wasn't. Attached were 6 photos. All black and white. All of me. In places I hadn't been in years. Sitting at my childhood desk, drawing dinosaurs. Holding a balloon at my 10th birthday party. Standing outside the library in college, headphones on. Lying in bed, eyes closed. But the last 2? They weren't from the past. They were recent. One was from the coffee shop where I met Neath, taken from behind mid-handoff. The final photo was of me asleep in my bed, taken from less than a foot away. I replied, panicked. "What the hell is this? Is this a joke?" No response. I tried calling the number she'd used to text me after our meetup. Disconnected. I tried emailing again. The address was dead. I couldn't sleep. The idea of someone having photos of me, photos that I had never posed for, never even seen being taken, ate away at my nerves. I went to the police. They shrugged. "Did you give her access to your home?" "No." "Then it's probably a prank. Maybe an old friend trying to mess with you." But I didn't have friends like that. I barely had friends. I started going through the storage boxes again, looking for something, anything, and that's when I found the letter. It was buried in a box marked unsorted, tucked inside an old photo album. Faded typewriter ink, written on yellowing paper. To whoever finds this, if you have the camera, don't use it. Don't load film. Don't even press the shutter. It doesn't capture light. It captures moments. And once it captures a moment, it keeps it. But worse, sometimes it lets the moment out. I burned the film. I thought that would be enough. But then she came back. The one I photographed in the barn. The one with the teeth. I still hear the clicking at night. I tried burying the camera. If you're reading this, I'm sorry. Hélas. I didn't sleep that night either. My apartment felt different. Heavier. Every time I turned my back, I could swear I heard the soft click of a shutter. Not loud. Just there. And the lights? They flickered whenever I passed mirrors. Not all lights. Just those. I called in sick the next day. Sat in my apartment, curtains drawn, clutching a hammer. And at 3:13 p.m., the buzzer rang. I didn't answer. But I checked the peephole. There was a woman standing outside my door. Not Neith. Not anyone I knew. Wearing a black dress, old-fashioned. Head tilted at an unnatural angle. Eyes wide. Lips curled back. No camera. Just staring. I stepped away from the door, heart thudding. She knocked once. Click. Twice. Click. Then turned and walked away. I moved the next day. Didn't tell anyone. Didn't take anything but clothes and my laptop. I threw the storage keys into a lake. Blocked Craigslist from my browser. But sometimes, when I walk past shop windows or parked cars with reflective glass, I catch a glimpse of her. Behind me. Smiling. Holding a camera.